Good
Anthony.
morning, good
Hello,
afternoon, good
everyone.
evening. Thank you to everyone joining us today for another HPP Innovation Week session. Today I'm joined by my colleague Daniela Soto, works here with me at our Miami, Florida office. She's our HPP food application specialist who advises customers on food science inquiries. And I am part of the business development team, helping customers with new business and assisting in integration of machinery at food production facilities. Today's session is titled HPP Trending Applications, Seafood, Meat, Prepared Meals, and Raw Pet Food. So we will be breaking down both from a commercial level, showing different examples of some of these trending applications in the industry, so showing the growth that these applications have had, as well as the market overall. And Daniela will be giving a breakdown of some food science studies behind some of these applications and kind of the benefits it can bring your company. So I'll kick off with a overview of the HPP market. So this graph has recently been updated by our team at the end of 2023. From what we know, there's a little over 650 HPP machines installed globally. With those, Hiperbaric has successfully installed about 400 of those machines, giving us that 60% market share and positioning us as the global leader in high pressure processing. So a quick overview of the different applications that HPP is today used for. So HPP is a very versatile technology since it is a post-packaging process. So with the same machinery, you can use different types of products. Such as juices and beverages, think functional beverages, cold pressed juice shots with immune boosting ingredients. So you have meat products, both raw meats, cooked meats, cured deli meats, guacamole, and avocado products. We have customers doing everything from your traditional guacamole, avocado halves, avocado purees for food service. Salsas, plant-based, and fruit products has its own category, which has been booming, which we'll be touching on later in today's presentations. Everything from, plant-based chickpea and hummus dips, veggie dips, mojarra, different types of purees, baby food and fruits purees has also been a commonly used application. For mainly food safety and shelf life extension purposes, and also to preserve the functional ingredients in those products. Continuing here, we have ready-to-eat meals, for additional shelf life and to act as a kill step within those applications. Seafood products, today we'll be highlighting this category specifically, which has two use cases. Dairy products, everything from dips, cheeses, raw milks in certain countries, pet food, both cooked and raw pet food for enhanced food safety. And although not common, there is a use case for cosmetics and pharma with some of these using food ingredients. So here's a chart breakdown by percentages of each of these categories that I mentioned, with juices and beverages leading the applications, followed by meat products, as well as guacamole, which continues to grow tremendously. And then one application I didn't mention is the tolling service market, which essentially a toller or a third service provider is a company that invests into machinery and lends or gives this service to other companies that don't want to invest into equipment. So it's its own revenue generating model. Followed by that, we have the seafood category, which we'll be touching on today. And then After that, it's everything from R&D, sauces and plant-based, ready-to-eat meals, baby food, pet food, and these are the recently trending applications. And although they fall under that range of 1 to 3, 4%, we've seen a huge demand for these applications, and we strongly believe that these applications um, will make up similar to what these juices and meat products and guacamole products today make up of the market as a whole. So here I'll hand it off to Daniela if you kind of want to break down some of the applications and give an introduction to what we're going to be discussing today.
Yes, thank you, Anthony, and thank you everyone again for joining us. So, as Anthony mentioned, these four main applications, which are seafood, plant-based and dips, meat products, and raw pet food, they're pretty trendy right now. And currently, in the apps team, we have received a lot of inquiries, and we have seen also from part of the business team. I know that Anthony can't lie to me. Like we have seen a lot of interest from the customers on this for currently. First, the seafood application in order to obtain an effortless shucking, which can also be an automated process. We can help with that as well. And customers are looking to shuck and also to help ensure food safety from their bivalves and crustaceans. The next one is the plant-based and dips products by developing these plant-based products including meat alternatives as well as vegan cheeses, like this current trend regarding the environment and also reducing the consumption of meats has led many of the consumers to choose this type of food options. Also, the meat products category with the raw meat, cooked meat, and mainly the cured meat and deli meat as ready to eat meat products is currently being pretty trendy, and also everyone has to look on it because of the usual recalls that have been going on regarding this type of products. And HPP can act as a post-lethal step in this. Later on, I'll explain how exactly HPP will work and be applied in them. And finally, the pet food products, mainly the raw pet food. Also, we have other formats that could be of interest to you. And for these customers and pet food producers are being interested into how HPP can be applied as a lethal step by helping eliminate all the pertinent pathogens that could be present while preserving the nutritional value of their products, which will also help enhance the health of their pets, which after the pandemic, we could see this boom in pet consumers that are trying to give their pets the highest quality in pet food.
Absolutely. So moving along, we're going to do a breakdown of each of these applications that Daniela just mentioned, kicking off with seafood applications. As I mentioned earlier, seafood has two different applications. The use case for shucking and meat extraction, which you can see on the left, the majority of the products using this for shucking are crustaceans and bivalves, specifically lobsters and oysters. For this specific application, we use lower pressure and holding times. And I'm sure, as you've learned in the previous HPP Innovation Week sessions, pressure and holding time are key parameters when dealing with high pressure processing. So more moderate pressures between 29 and 50,000 psi, and holding times between 60 seconds and 180 seconds. So what this pressure will do at this holding time will separate the meat from the adductor muscle from the shell, allowing for an effortlessly shuck or meat removal from either oysters or lobsters. On the other hand, we have shelf life extension and food safety for post packaging use. So here we have two examples of a pre cooked octopus and raw seafood fish fillets from a customer out of Europe. For this application, we will require higher pressures, 87,000 psi, which is the highest pressure used for all commercial HPP units, and holding times typically at 3 minutes, but can go up to 6 minutes. The reason for this is the higher the pressure, the more inactivation and microbial load you can get rid of. So, which will ultimately help with the shelf life of the product. So here is a breakdown of different seafood products within the category as a whole. As I already mentioned, you have the lobster extraction application. Although rare, there are companies using this for crab extraction as well, snow crab, and mollusk and bivalves. After that, we have an example of raw fish fillets, which I already explained, the pre-cooked octopus, where we have customers extending shelf life up to 90 days on this application. You can see it vacuum sealed on a skin pack tray. Below, from left to right, desalted cod. Companies achieving a 40-day shelf life on this application with no preservatives or additives. Algae, this is an example, commercial example of a company's seaweed salad that exports algae seaweed salad to the United States, helping them reduce the amount of preservatives in the product and allowing them to get that additional shelf life. Followed by that as an example of a fish salad, a clean label fish salad with, again, shelf life extension. This is a post-packaging example. We then have a commercial example from our customer, Fuchsia Clean Label. This is a ready-to-eat meal, bed of grains with a cooked filet salmon on top with a shelf life extension of 45 days. And after that, we have crab meat. So this is cooked crab meat that's already been packaged, HPP'd for ensuring food safety and the quality of the crab meat. So after explaining these applications, we now want to give a focus to the shucking application. And as you know, the reason for the seafood shucking category growing is because of the reason that traditional shucking is so labor intensive. Not only is it labor intensive, but you don't get that full recovery of the meat, and at times can be hazardous where injuries can occur, like shucking an oyster. So what HPP allows you to do is process at a much faster rate, not have to worry about injuries and such. You get a full recovery of the meat, as we'll show in later examples, allowing you to market new products, and obviously shelf life, food safety as a whole for both the shucking and post-packaging applications. So here we have two examples. On the left side, you have the full recovery. This is actually one of the most impressive pictures of a full recovered lobster post-HPP. And on the right, you have plumped up oyster meat, also recovered from some of the testing that we have done here at our pilot plant. So you want to kick this one off, Danielle?
Yes, thank you, Anthony. I don't know if you can go back to the slide that you mentioned
Yeah,
about the plumped
absolutely.
oyster. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to add something about the plumped oyster. HPP can also help oyster processors when performing shucking gain some weight on moisture because HPP will help hydrate the proteins that are inside the meat. And that is why oysters meat can come more, as you mentioned, like plumped, also more shiny. And I've seen that some of our customers and some clients that have performed trials with us, they usually say that they prefer this kind of oyster meat presentation, mainly because like they gain weight with water, but also it is more like tasty when you cook it. Also, when you try it, it is pretty. It's different experience. Also, you see a bigger meat with like it's shinier and it looks more appealing for the customer who buys it. And also the thing that you mentioned about the lobster, I've seen it and it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely impressive. Yeah, probably one of my favorite applications and use cases with the technology.
Yeah, and also you can recover, like I've seen some studies in some cases where they can recover even 100% of the meat by selecting the best processing parameters. So it's cool. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So you're probably wondering how does this work? Do I just throw the seafood product in the machine. So basically, to break that down for you, it's we load up and we prefer live product to help preserve the quality, to be able to market this. So you load up the basket, and carriers, and I'm sure in previous sessions you've seen how a traditional HPP machine works, but I'll try to best describe it through this graphic. You load up whether it's a live lobster, or live oyster or crab. This basket then enters what we call the vessel. The vessel is filled with low pressure water. Once filled up, we have what are called intensifiers, which help generate the pressure. Once we get to the desired pressure, in most cases for lobster around 43,500 psi, we enter the holding time stage. So it's a period of time that we're at that pressure for. So typically for a lobster, it'd be around 1 minute. And then we instantly decompress pressure. And then you get on the other end of the machine, killed lobster, where the meat has already loosened from the adductor muscle of that shell, allowing for an easier extraction.
Also, Anthony, I would like to add something there. Like, maybe someone from the audience will be asking themselves, like, "Oh, it's a little bit cruel that you're introducing a live oyster, like a live animal inside the equipment." But the thing is that there are several studies that have shown that, in fact, with HPP they suffer less. And if you're interested in learning more about this, you can reach out to me, and I can share this with you. And also, based on our experience and also based on different studies that have been done, if you introduce your product fresh into the HPP processing, it's even better because you're avoiding the rigor mortis chemical reactions that could occur. And because of this, you can preserve the freshness attribute. So, this is why we usually recommend our customers to process their products the freshest possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we
Yes.
have, going back to that humane method and how humane HPP is. I believe we have a white paper outlining some of the studies that were done. So if there's anyone in the audience that's interested, reach out to Danielle and her team, which can be reached out at apps@hyperbaric.com, and we'd be happy to send you that white paper. So Danielle,
Yes.
since you were at it, I will let you take it from here.
Great. Thank you, Anthony. So, as I mentioned before, with this shocking process with HPP, you can recover even the 100% of the meat inside the lobster. Also, you perform an effortless shocking because it's pretty impressive. Like after the lobsters come out of the machine, you can just peel off the shell from the meat, and it's pretty easy. And also, you'll be using really low pressures, so you preserve all the sensory attributes from the product. And also, at even these lower pressures, you can achieve higher inactivation of some pertinent microorganisms such as Vibrio, and you can even reach and even surpass the inactivation levels of 3.52, which is asked by food safety authorities such as ISSC. And also, there's another thing that is pretty interesting, and I would like to mention that if you process your product with salt and water, with salty water, you can also infuse a salty flavor inside the meat, which we know that maybe a customer is doing. And also there's studies that mention this as well.
Yeah, so here we have different types of commercial formats within the HPP industry. There's customers doing a whole lobster. We don't have a picture of it, but it's literally a whole naked lobster. Think of it, just the meat stretched out, like I think you saw in one of these previous slides, vacuum sealed on a tray, or you have this split lobster presentation, where the consumer can literally just pull off the meat from the shell. You have customers extracting just the claw and knuckle meat, offering this both in raw formats or cooked formats. And you have the raw or cooked lobster tails, where, in the case of raw, the consumer, and if it's frozen, can just thaw it out. Once it's thawed out, the meat the consumer has the experience of just pulling out that whole tail from the lobster tail itself.
And now with another shocking application, which is mainly done for oysters, you can also obtain an effortless shocking extraction of the meat from the shell by processing at even lower pressures from 2500 to 2700 bars to help denature the proteins that are present in the abductor muscle, which is a muscle that is responsible of keeping the oyster closed. This muscle is the strongest one that is found inside the oyster meat, and after this muscle gets the proteins denatured, you can see how easily after it is processed with HPP, the oyster opens by itself, and also how easy it is to just push the meat from the shell and release it and obtain 100% of the meat recovery. And also, you'll be asking yourselves, well, Daniela, can I still obtain a microbial inactivation at these lower pressures? And the answer is yes. You can still inactivate Vibrio or norovirus, which are pertinent, and we have seen them a lot in several recalls this and last year.
Yeah, last 2 years it has been absolutely crazy, both Vibrio and norovirus. So that's definitely a challenge that, and one of the reasons why we've been seeing this application receiving so much attention. So definitely agree with
Yes,
you, Danielle.
yes. And as well, even at these lower pressures, you can still increase the shelf life for a few days. And in the last slide, it said 21 days extended shelf life. And it is the case when you store it with ice under refrigerated conditions and without adding any preservatives. So you're still preserving a clean label, which is another trend going on right now in the food industry.
Absolutely. And to piggyback off that, what Danielle was saying, these are some commercial examples right now. So, starting with the left, it's a company, Goose Point Oysters, where they have the give the consumer the experience of pulling off the band and having that extraction themselves, where they open up the shell and literally meat just falls off. In the center, you have a half shell. So after processing, remove the top shell, place it on a tray, vacuum the tray, or you can just sell. This is usually for food service cases or even at retail level. Just vacuum pack the oyster meat.
And you know, Anthony, these applications and these commercial formats are amazing because you also bring this culinary experience to the customer. Also with the lobster meat, because they can have the experience of performing the shocking but like easier and also safer because you're inactivating pertinent pathogens, so the consumer can feel safe as well of consuming a product that has been processed correctly and that
I,
yeah.
I totally agree with you. I mean, me myself as a consumer, like if I I'm walking down the grocery store and like I see a bushel of oysters that I'm thinking I'm gonna have to shuck. I have no experience shucking oysters and have no business shucking oysters. So if I already see a shucked oyster meat tub that I can throw into and just cook it myself or eat it myself, definitely more approachable, I would say.
Yes, and also you're
So
avoiding any injuries from performing the manual shucking. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely agree with you. So enough talking about seafood. We're going to be moving on to another application that, although has been around for some time, and I would say, gained a lot of attention years back due to numerous amount of recalls around cooked meat products. But we've been seeing this, uprise again of interest in, HPP for all sorts of different types of meat applications and value add opportunities, such as raw marinated meats, which we'll go into now, which is actually the first example that I'll kick off in the next slide. So this is one of our customers, Old Neighborhood Foods, that's developed numerous value add meat products. This is they have a line of different meats of everything from chicken to beef to pork, with different marinades. And you would think that, and the reason for the marinade, so I think it's important to know, and I'm sure, Daniela, you're going to be touching on this. So, HPP does have an effect on the color of raw meats, giving a cook-like, although not cooked and not affecting that nutritional profile of that product, it does change that appearance. So to mask that, some companies like Old Neighborhood Foods have developed products with different marinades and spices, which honestly help, one, obviously create a value add product, but even from a taste profile, the pressure helps the marinade sort of, juice up the meat and, improve that experience and taste profile for the consumer. Next to that chicken breast marinade product, you have their new line of skewers, or some people would call them kebabs. It's essentially a just meat on a stick, and that's a very similar product that's also marinated. Moving along, you have different sorts of cooked products. Here we have examples of chicken breast slices and shredded chicken, which is also a value add opportunity. I know of one company that shreds for chicken that they're not able to sell on time, fully fresh. What they'll do is shred that chicken, vacuum pack it, get that additional shelf life, preserve that quality, and still be able to get that to the consumer, which ultimately helps reduce food waste, of course. And then the last example is cured and deli meats, which is purely for food safety and shelf life extension. And Daniela will get into it, but it offers a kill step for these types of products.
And also, Anthony, I would like to add something to this slide. Like when you process the raw meat, since it will be covered in other Innovation Week sessions, but I will just like to mention the changing color is mainly attributed to a denaturation of the protein responsible of giving the red color meat, which is myoglobin.
Mm-hmm.
However, as Anthony mentioned, it's pretty easy to cover this change in color, and also it's it's amazing when you process with HPP this marinated raw meat, because you open the package and it's strong, the smell and also the flavor of the marinades. HPP can also have this effect, and also on the cooked meat, about the poultry that you touch on in these examples, I like to add about the application of HPP in touching with the new act that the USDA have created on raw comminuted poultry products that are breaded or stuffed. HPP can also be an application in this, because you know HPP can help inactivate salmonella and still help increase the food safety of these raw poultry products to meet with this act that the USDA have recently created on breaded, stuffed, raw chicken products. So, still, if you're interested in this application as well, we can guide you on this too.
Absolutely. So I guess to further move on from the commercial examples, these are some companies, customers of ours that use our technology at a global scale to process their meat products. Companies like Campo Frio, which was actually one of our the first customer that we sold an HPP machine to 20 plus years ago. Espuña, which exports, Greek company Fantes, the Alpine Wurst, which recently invested into their own HPP machine to process different types of sausages for clean label and shelf life extension. Very well known Hormel Foods, Old Neighborhood Foods, which we just gave an example of, Vial, based in Canada, West Liberty Foods of the United States, as well as Salins in the Northeast, and then Canadian companies, Sofina, Lilydale, as well as Asian companies, WH Group, that does a number of ready-to-eat products.
And now
Danielle,
I will, yeah,
yeah, I was gonna say this is all yours. This is your world
thank
here.
you. Thank you. I just like to mention, as I mentioned before, since this new salmonella policy is going on with poultry, there's also another listeria policy that is focused on ready to eat meats. So HPP can also um, help you meet these requirements that the USDA is asking. So HPP can act as a post-lethal treatment, and HPP has been accepted by the FDA and by the USDA to reduce or even eliminate listeria contamination on ready-to-eat meat products, which will help eliminate the risk of presenting listeria and even salmonella and E. coli on these products. It could be even in cooked or cured or uncured ready-to-eat meat products. And with this, HPP can also help you ensure food safety while ensuring zero recalls. In the history of HPP, we have presented any recalls through our history, and also since HPP is a post-packaging process, it will help prevent any recontamination. Because sometimes some um, ready-to-eat meat processors, they create a whole chop of cured or cooked meat, and then they slice it, and in this step of slicing they could recontaminate their product after packaging it. So HPP can help avoid this recontamination, and also you not only will obtain the benefit of ensuring food safety, but also you can even double or triple the product shelf life depending on the HPP parameters that are applied and the physical chemical parameters characteristics of your product. And as I mentioned before, not even listeria, but also salmonella and E. coli can be out of the risk too. And also, we've seen a lot of recalls recently on ready to eat meats, so HPP can help you on this. And as I mentioned before, HPP is pretty effective in eliminating the risk of listeria. Here, I collected some research studies that have been done with HPP and different cooked, cured, and uncured products such as salami, sausage, Strasbourg beef, fouet, and here you can see how HPP sometimes at different parameters by applying up to 600 megapascals, which is equivalent to 87,000 psi for 3 minutes or more. HPP can help reach the 5 logs or even surpass it. And still, as a post-lethal step, HPP is required to reach between the 2 and 3 logs. So as you can see at these parameters, HPP is able to reach them. Also, the effectivity of HPP will mainly depend on water activity, and this is something pretty important to take into consideration when looking to process your ready-to-eat meat with HPP. And we have seen some cases and also based on some studies where HPP can help increase the shelf life for up to 16 or 90 days under a refrigerated storage. So every HPP product needs to be stored under refrigerated conditions.
Yeah, this is a common range, definitely 60 to 9 days. But I've also seen cases, obviously, with additional hurdles. Can't go into specifics, but customers have been able to reach up to 120 days, in different ranges of cooked sausages. So, yeah, definitely shelf life extension is key for dealing with HPP and ready to eat meats. So now moving along, still within the same world of meats, we have the pet food application, which the last 2 to 3 years has, surged quite rapidly. And this is a graph that kind of shows down the breakdown of how companies are using HPP. So there is two different methods as we've been seeing in the industry. So you have companies getting the raw material, raw different meats, beef, chicken, seafood as well, salmon that you see there, blending this, with additional nutritional ingredients, such as, fish oils and vitamins and minerals. And they're either packing these into chubs, processing them, and selling them refrigerated or frozen. And then you have the companies that are then opening this chub and further processing this into, bite-sized shapes and marketing a freeze-dried, shelf-stable product, or a refrigerated, frozen, and shelf-stable product, or in rare cases, heat dried product. So obviously, the benefit of processing in the final packaging is that you prevent any recontamination. But there are some companies that do these in clean rooms where they further process to obviously get that benefit and advantage of developing a shelf stable product with other technologies such as freeze drying. Here are some different pet food commercial examples. Starting with the left is a very well known United States brand, Fresh Pet, which is a cooked product, so it is not raw. All the other products to the right of that are raw. So you have We Feed Raw, which is processing in their final packaging, offering a this is a vacuum thermoform pouch. Um, so this is in their final packaging. However, Steve's Real Food, this is a freeze dried example, which undergoes that process where I said they process in a chub. They open that chub up after HPPing it, add the additional ingredients, and then further process with freeze drying to get that shelf stable kind of nugget application. Same with Instinct to the right of that, and Kiwi Kitchens out of New Zealand with a very similar freeze dried format. And I will hand it off to Danielle to talk science about raw HPP raw pet food.
Thank you, Anthony. But before talking about science, I'll go with the laws in the US. So, as you may know, the FDA created the FDA Food Safety Modernization Act, and in 2011, the FSMA, and they asked to add any processing intervention method to ensure food safety, and pet food is included in this Modernization Act. So, HPP is an additional control measure that has been accepted by the FDA as well, as it has been with the ready to eat meat. It has been accepted for pet food in order to help reduce the risk of presenting foodborne illnesses such as Salmonella, Listeria, coli, not only for your pets but also for the owner of the pet who handles this pet food, because sometimes they handle it in their kitchen or they're touching it, and there's a cross contamination, so you can get sick of it. And also, HPP can help again avoid recalls, ensuring food safety. And since mainly these products are processed raw, HPP is pretty easy to help achieve a 5 log reduction and be classified as a killing step in raw pet food formulations, which you can be pretty versatile in what you add in the formulations, since HPP can still help you reach this 5 log reduction. And well, there are several benefits that you can obtain by giving your pet raw pet food. And the first one is that there are some studies that have shown a decrease in reports regarding pet bowel issues. This was mainly said by one of our clients, Steve's Real Pet Food. Also, they mentioned on their website that raw pet food consumption can reduce fecal matter of your pets. I think this is something that could be of interest for some pet owners. And also, raw pet food have shown significantly higher coefficients of digestibility. So, who doesn't want to give the best pet food to their pets? HPP, by processing raw pet food formulations, can help you still get these benefits while also protecting consumers and also pets from getting any foodborne disease. And also, you can still give your pet, your furry friend, a high nutritional value product. This is a study that was made by Steve's Real Pet Food, again, one of our customers. They examined the effects of HPP on 95 different nutrients, in which there were vitamins, minerals, proteins, fats, and also fiber. And they found out that HPP had a minimal impact on these enlisted nutrients. So, as you can see in this pie chart, 67% of the analyzed nutrients had an increasement. 16% of it had a preserved content, like there was no change, and only 17% had a decreased and the content of the nutrients. However, only 4% of this decreased nutrients showed a significant decreasement, which were the ones enlisted in blue at the bottom left. And this is pretty easy to solve because you only reformulate by adding maybe more liver or other ingredients that could be functional for the final product and solve this issue. And as I was been mentioning in some slides before, the food safety benefit, here I show you some research studies that have analyzed the effect of HPP in different raw meat matrices. And you can see in these charts how HPP can help reach or even surpass the 5 log reduction for Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria in raw pet food formulations with a high water activity value when applying high pressures that can go from 5,000, 6,000 bars for different holding times between 3 and 5 minutes, which is the most common ones in the pet food industry. So HPP can also help increase the shelf life since HPP can also eliminate pathogens that can be deteriorative. So this is why shelf life extension occurs after processing with HPP. Here you can see a graph where they process at different pressure conditions raw beef formulation, and you can compare the control, which is the gray line, with the blue line, which was processed at 520 megapascals, which is commonly seen in the pet food industry. And you can see how HPP increased the shelf life for a couple of weeks more. And just as a general observation, raw meat formulations, by process them with HPP, you can obtain an increased shelf life of 21 to 60 days, and when storing it frozen, it can go from 1 to 2 years. And when processing a freeze dried pet food formulation, which is something pretty trendy right now because you avoid the refrigerated step and distribution, you can increase the shelf life from 6 months to 3 years, which is a lot. And now, going on with the freeze drying step that I was mentioning before, you will be asking, how can I process a freeze dried product? Well, the way it is done is first you process the raw meat in chops with HPP as a little step. In this step, you will control the presence of pertinent pathogens, such as the one that I was mentioning before, and this step will be considered the lethal step. Also, you'll need to validate it, and I'm sure that you'll get the 5 log reduction in Listeria, Salmonella, E. coli. After this, you'll store these raw meat chops in an ultra cooling room under refrigerated conditions before forming it into what was Anthony mentioning, like nuggets, kibbles, pellets, patties, and then this are freeze dried, and they are placed on trays. They are introduced into a freeze drying equipment, and after this freeze drying step is done, you just pack your products and package it in your desired packaging format, and just distribute it and sell them. Also, packaging is a pretty important thing to consider when looking to process with HPP since it needs to be pretty flexible and also water resistant since we'll be using water as the pressurizing medium. So that is why usually the most common material when processing with HPP is plastic. And there are different packaging types that you can use and different materials as well. For the pet food packaging formats, in the next slide, you can see that you can even process in cups as opposed packaging, where you introduce the raw turkey recipes. Also, thermoforming as a vacuum format, where you introduce your raw meat or raw formulation into a thermoform, and then you vacuum pack it, and you will preserve the initial shape that you wanted for the product. Next one is in pouches as opposed packaging. Also, you have the chops as opposed packaging. This is something that we have also seen with Fresh Pet and the one that you can see in the screen.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, for the cups format, so the product isn't process with the cup with the lid. So there is a film, and the film's definitely very important. We recommend a good width of a flaying on the cup, so that you can have a nice strong heat seal. And then after the process, that's when you put the lid on top to obviously
And
prevent the water from getting into the cup. Go
and
ahead, Danielle.
also adding to that, Anthony, and thanks for touching base on that, because also if you process it with the lid on, it's pretty easy to obtain a mold formation after HPP, because moisture will still be inside the container. So after a certain period of time, it will start growing. So that's another thing why we don't
Absolutely.
process it that way. And also, you can see that all this commercial packaging formats, they have in common that they are vacuum pack. And I just want to add that it's important that no air is inside the packaging, because you could present packaging malfunctions.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Although
and
still possible to process with air, we recommend reducing that air as much as possible to get a more successful product.
yeah, also you increase the productivity of your
Absolutely.
processing, because if not, you'll be processing just air and not product.
We definitely don't want that.
Yeah. So finally, just to wrap up these benefits of HPP applied for raw pet food formulations. The first one is the food safety. As you learned through this conversation, you can inactivate the foodborne pathogens while preventing recalls, avoiding them, while also eliminating recontamination by preserving a clean label, because you'll be using only natural products, avoiding the use of any chemicals or preservatives. And finally, with all this, you can open new market opportunities by also meeting food safety requirements imposed by the current law.
So the last application that we're going to be touching on is the ready to eat category. And although this can be broad, and ready to eat can be applied to all the applications that that we've mentioned, with the exception of raw products. We are going to do a focused on the more popular formats that we've seen in the industry. And here just is a quick snapshot of different, ready to eat HPP products on the market, starting with the already mentioned, hummus dip from Ithaca Hummus. This is a U.S. brand growing very rapidly within its own category. After that, we have ready to eat formats, which I've already shared the fuchsia product. To the right of that is our company, the Soup Spoon, under the brand Superfoods, which is this is tray with spaghetti sauce with already cooked beef meatballs. To the right of that, we have fruit and veggie purees from baby food brand Little Spoon, mush overnight oats. So these are oats cooked, not cooked, soaked in almond milk, with already obviously ready to eat. On the bottom from left to right, Good Foods plant-based buffalo style dip, guacamole, which has a huge presence not only in Mexico. We've been seeing a huge demand in Colombia, Peru, and also exporting to countries in Europe and Asia as well. Salsa, you know, especially with fresh salsa, where you don't want to have an intervention of heat. HPP helps act as that, still give you that shelf life while preserving that quality of fresh ingredients like cilantro, peppers, onions, and such, which Daniela will also get into. Salad dressings and even soups. So, Danielle, this is all yours.
Thank you, Anthony. And I'll continue what Anthony was mentioning about the salsas and how preserving the food safety of your product. So again, HPP will help preserve food safety and help extend the shelf life. And for these product types, HPP will act as a post lethal step for some cases, and for others as a lethal step. So, in the first case, we can see how we have a model soup and also ready to eat cooked chicken. For ready to eat cooked chicken, HPP will act as a post lethal step because the chicken will already be cooked, and for the soup it'll probably act as a lethal step because no processing intervention will occur before HPP. And for this, you can see how higher pressures from 500 megapascals to 600 are applied, and still high inactivation levels of listeria are obtained, and also an extended shelf life. You can see in the model soup, you can obtain 3 weeks of shelf life, and for the ready to eat cooked chicken, even 60 days. So, HPP can help extend the shelf life 2 or 3 times more for these ready to eat products. Also, some physical chemical characteristics such as the pH, the water activity, will have an influence when looking to extend it. And here I have a research study that was done with pico de gallo, which is a Mexican salsa. It's pretty good, and also it is mainly characterized by being pretty fresh and pretty flavorful. And it has really natural ingredients. It is has tomatoes, jalapeno peppers, serrano peppers, Spanish onions, also garlic, salt, and lemon juice to help lower the pH. And in this study, they processed it with 500 megapascals for 2 minutes, and they saw that no salmonella was detected during its shelf life, and they obtained an inactivation of this microorganism between the 4 and 5.8 logarithms. So it's quite a lot, and HPP acted as a lethal step in the salsa because it is sold fresh and it's a pretty common application. And also, as I mentioned before, with the fresh salsa, HPP can help preserve a clean label because you will have to avoid the need to add any preservatives, and you'll be using only fresh ingredients that consumers can pronounce and that they know. Like you won't be using any sorbates. You will be using only natural ingredients that can bring nutritious and high quality food products. You can see in these products they have in common that they use ingredients that are low acid, such as lemon juice or vinegar, to obtain a pH below 4.6 and a pretty lower pH that can help extend the shelf life even more. And this is something that I've seen quite a lot as trendy, and that even many of my friends and many of the customers, even my family, even myself, were looking for more clean label rich, nutritious products because we're pretty conscious right now of our health. And this is something that's having a lot of trendy right now, even in social media or even in different brands. And regarding the importance of temperature and pH, like all HPP products need to be stored under refrigerated condition because this will help slow down the chemical reactions that could occur at ambient temperatures. And also HPP won't be pretty effective to inactivate enzymes, so you will also slow down any enzymatic activity when storing your products under refrigerated conditions. And also you'll prevent microorganisms such as spore forming bacteria, which aren't eliminated with HPP, from growing. And another thing that's important to take into account is pH, that it needs to be below 4.6. We suggest this to act as a barrier to prevent spore forming bacteria such as CBOT from growing in your product. And still, HPP can act as a bactericidal control. And water activity, which, as I mentioned before in the ready to eat meat products, HPP efficiency will depend mainly on this value. So we recommend to increase the water activity up to 0.96. Higher is better. The most close to 1 is the better. And at a high inactivation of microorganisms will be obtained at this value, and the minimum water activity required will be 0.87. This is very important to mention it for the ready to eat meat products because we know that the water activity isn't that high, but still at 0.87 of water activity, you'll still obtain inactivation of some microorganisms. And here I mentioned some dry products that we don't suggest to process with HPP, which are spices and powders, as well as dried nuts or fruits, also bread and pastries because they will lose their initial shape and they have a low water activity, and also extracts because they have a pretty low water activity. They are high in bricks, and HPP isn't that effective when inactivating microorganisms.
Awesome, Danielle. I think that kind of wraps up our trending application session highlighting seafood, meat products, pet food, and ready to eat products. I guess just to take a step back and kind of highlight some of the benefits that we mentioned during the session, such as ensuring food safety, meeting the food safety regulations in the case whether you're exporting or selling at the state level or regional level, the shelf life extension benefits you are able to achieve for all these products, whether you're able to double or triple your shelf life. Obviously, clean label, not having to rely on one heat or chemical preservatives or additives to get that shelf life extension. The fact that you can get this with a cold pasteurization process with HPP, maintaining those organoleptic characteristics such as taste, texture, smell, is obviously a game changer for a range of products. And I think it's seeing the reason why we're seeing a huge demand spread across these applications. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add on before we wrap things up here.
Yes, mostly that HPP will also help you meet your customers' expectations on new trendy products by obtaining clean label products. Also, I mentioned in the ready to eat products with ingredients that customers can pronounce is something that we've seen in all these trendy applications that we showed, while also helping ensure food safety by avoiding all these recalls that are going on and they're flooded everywhere in the food safety news.
Yeah, I think that's important to note too. I mean, this demand isn't obviously coming from the manufacturers, but also the consumers that are
Yeah.
demanding and becoming a lot more conscious of what they're eating and reading ingredient decks. And, they're recognizing what preservatives are, and they kind of just want ingredients that, that they can recognize and find in their refrigerator. So I 100% agree with you, Danielle. And I guess the last thing I want to add on, if there's anyone in the audience that wants to, test their products, Daniela is our food expert. She leads our pilot plant here out of Miami, where we offer complimentary testing. So we'd welcome, the opportunity to speak with you, provide consultation on whether your product is a compatible product with our technology, and do testing firsthand. You can either ship us the product or come visit us at our pilot plant facility and work with Daniela and her team to figure out this technology is suitable for you and can provide the value that you're looking for. And with that being said, that wraps up our session today. And I hope you stick around and for the next session during our HPP Innovation Week 2024. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.